For David, you probably have a different experience.
Yes, I've just witnessed as a sympathetic viewer to the the people who have to take the Gaokao.
Yeah, but you also have SAT exams back in the United States, right?
That's right, and we studied for them very hard also, and there was a lot of pressure. However, the difference with the Gaokao and the SATs is even if I did badly on the SATs, I could probably get into some university somewhere, without a doubt.
But when it comes to jobs and when it comes to bios, it probably wouldn't sound as fascinating as the great university, so-called.
That's true. Right.
Yeah. So is that the same everywhere in the world?
Well, there is some study that has categorized the university admission schemes into 5 types.
Yeah.
So there is the one like United States, and there is the one like China, as the Gaokao is the only pathway to the university, and that's also regarded as most fair or most equitable system. But well, actually, comparing United States and China, the pilot reform what we're doing now is, I think, getting closer to United States, and students, even if they could not succeed in the Gaokao, but they could get good performance in the something called Students Learning Performance Examination. So when they
Another exam.
So in the future, they will combine or integrate their scores in these 2 examinations.
Before we go to this very complicated reform, Chinese education system has always been enjoying over the past few decades, some successful, some not necessarily. So let's talk about exactly what this college entrance examination is, the nature of it. Professor Li, I mean, for a basic college entrance exam, is its nature to cultivate the best talents of the country, or its nature is to be as fair to everyone as possible who have reached a certain age and seeking further education and job opportunity in the country?
Thanks, Tim Wei. And this is a very good question. Thank you. I think for Gaokao itself, it means 2 things. One thing is how to select the most talented, brightest students, get into universities for their further development and for the sake of the whole society. The second thing is about the fairness you mentioned. That's the educational equality, how this equality can be kept to a certain level, so that the young generation can move up.
But Professor, let's just be clear here.
Yes.
Can one arrow shoot so many birds at the same time? I'm not just believing in that, what you have just said. On the one hand, select the best talents of the country. On the other hand, to be fair, as fairly as possible for anyone and open to everyone. Is it going to be achievable, both goals at the same time? Is it fair to ask too much for one exam system?
That's right. Yeah, it's actually a dilemma. It's very hard, and that's why Gaokao has been restored after the Cultural Revolution to achieve excellence. To select the brightest students. And on the other hand, it's very, very difficult to keep that fair to everybody. In terms of the Gaokao itself, it's fine. It's equal to everybody who participated.
Yeah.
But there is some unequal background information behind the selection process. For example, family background. Some students enjoy much more resources. Their family can afford to provide more resources for them.
Let me ask
but not all.
Okay.
So that's the dilemma.
I don't know what you refer to, but Professor Li, as you may know, coming from a well-educated family background, you usually have more access in any country toward the educational system. That is just a matter of fact. I don't know exactly what you refer to, but let's have Ms. Wang to respond to that. Does family matter in this regard?
Well, in China, as I said, China's Gaokao system is regarded as one of the most fair in the world, and it provides or secure a pretty high degree of fairness of the educational opportunities. Especially last year, recently, the government has a new policy to allocate more quota to the underdeveloped regions, and but well, after all, everywhere in the world, social capital do play a role, but
play a role in any society.
yeah, but it
just to be
depends
very
on
clear.
how much the central government can make interventions to make the system more actable. I think China is doing well in this regard.
We'll see what's going to happen. Since 1990s, just to be fair, we take some numbers at this. Chinese government started to call for Gaokao reform. One of the attempts was to increase the enrollment rate. In other words, everyone has better opportunity to go to the universities. Back in 1977, gross enrollment rate in China, number of college students among all young people aged between 18 and 22, barely 4.8%, less than 5. So 2016, this ratio jumped around 40%. Enlargement in college enrollment created problems as well, because more people got into universities, more people tried to find jobs, and yet the jobs number do not necessarily match with the enlargement of the enrollment in the universities. So David, here's the thing, two things. One is, what is the nature of Gaokao? Should we ask too much about one system to let it produce everything we want? Secondly, enlargement, does that mean fairness?
Okay, well, first of all, one of the problems with the Gaokao is that, yes, it's very fair, but that it tends to select students who are very good at taking tests. And that means two things. It means that there are certain kinds of students who are good at studying for tests and are good for acquiring and spitting out that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
It also means the tests can only cover certain kinds of knowledge that are able to be put on a multiple choice question, for example.
Do you have alternatives to the question?
No, I don't, but
Okay.
that's one of the problems. The other problem, you talked about increased participation. That's true. There's now more people that are able to take the test and to get into college. The problem now is that China needs a more diverse job employment market. People who have different skills, who have skills that aren't approachable with the Gaokao.
Right.
So those are the two problems with the Gaokao right now. There's nothing wrong with the test if you want to pick out those particular STEM course kinds of talents. But if you want all-around talents, the Gaokao probably will never be a good test for that.
Well, should it be expected as the best test for everything?
Well, I think it could not. It's not possible. And now the overall reform direction is kind of like a reconcile the fairness with efficiency. And the new pilot reform scheme or Gaokao scheme is to allow students to select 3 subjects out of 6 or 7 that they think they prefer or more suits with their talents or career development
Well, of course,
orientation.
during this process, the fairness thing has become such a big issue because Gaokao is supposed to be relatively fair. The problem is the fairest system so far in China. When you put reform over there, make sure the fairness issue is the top priority. Otherwise, we lose the whole credibility of the Gaokao system. Having said that, though, do many people still rely on Gaokao anymore, particularly those that have more social capital, as you mentioned earlier? So many Chinese students.
Yeah.
When they get to high school, they're already enrolled in a very different program. They go and taste the SAT, they go to Australia, the United Kingdom, and some of the other countries as well. So Gaokao, is that still the system to churn out the best Chinese students, or actually the best Chinese students shy away from it already?
Well, the problem with, a lot of parents want to avoid the Gaokao because they feel the Chinese educational system is too stifling, it's too limited, it limits creativity, and so they send their kids overseas or they do other options within China. The problem is, from the educator's standpoint, is that the only class that can really take advantage of these possibilities are the upper middle class or the upper class, the rich, the aristocrats, or the so-called fuerdai and so on. Yes, so yes, there are all these. The educational system is expanding and opening up, but only to that upper class who can afford to go overseas. So for the most of the people in the lower middle class, they're stuck with the Gaokao. There's no other option for them, basically.
Really? Is that true, Professor Li?
Well, yes, I think I agree, David's point. And I think, of course, for some families, especially for some middle classes, they want to send their kids to overseas for study. Mainly, I think one thing is they can do Jin in Chinese. You earn something very special and valuable, which you cannot earn from Chinese universities.
Like a status
so
in a way.
that's the one point. That's the motivation for them. The other motivation is that they can learn something different and learn how to respect diversity in other countries. If they continue their learning in China, maybe they cannot develop that kind of perspective. So that's also very valuable, especially in the age of globalization.
Right, but is that true, or is that misperception, or that is only true in certain universities if these students go to, not necessarily true in other universities, because we all know there are different kinds of universities around the world. Even though there are foreign universities, does not necessarily mean they're better. Ms. Wang, very briefly, got 40 seconds for you.
Well, actually, if we look at one step further, and we will see pros and cons of going abroad. Many graduates, even graduates from very prestigious university abroad, still have difficulty or challenge in finding a job at home, and also
not to mention in the country that they study in.
Yeah, and also back at home. So, and the students who graduate from the domestic universities sometimes have more opportunities because of the social connections and also internship opportunities, etc. And also the quality education.
So your point is the quality of education?
I think it's advanced in China, higher education.